Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, I'm excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do, here's a quote just for this episode. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Being willing is not enough. We must do. Leonardo da Vinci, our guest today, has painted his way to success. I met him years ago at the Investor Center. I'm just kidding. The Investors Entourage or Entourage, Real Estate Entourage, speaking, educating in 2007 at it sounds like a terrible time to get in real estate. Actually, Brian Meara was running into real estate, selling houses, helping home buyers with three triplet boys. We're going to unpack that. And from then has built multiple businesses, multiple communities, cultures, and we've been friends for years. Thanks for coming on the show, man, and living the American dream there. And right today, he's recording this in Italy, in the middle of who knows where. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm in the mountains of northern Italy. I'm about 10 minutes from the border of Switzerland, where we live now.
So, this quote, right? When I think of you, I think of hustle, I think of getting stuff done. So what comes to mind when you hear knowing is not enough, we must apply. Being willing is not enough, we must do.
It's everything, man. It's one of those quotes I've heard many times myself in the past, but hearing you bring it up again, it's the essence of everything, right? I mean, you could have all the knowledge in the world, but unless you start taking action, literally nothing's going to happen. And I think that applies to really every area of life.
What type of work ethic did you have in the beginning? You started a new business, new relationship with yourself and these three kids. I was reading your bio in 2007. The reason I ask is I think that's very helpful for people listening to this today in the States. They're dying out there. They're struggling in the real estate community and other sectors. So what advice would you have for the audience on how to get something going from nothing?
Yeah, I think, maybe, and I don't know exactly what bio you're reading or which one you read, but, Jay, at the end of the day, if that was a very interesting and very challenging time in my life, I've had many, but that was a really rough one in particular in 2007, because I just was going through a divorce. And I say going through because it was fought out in court for almost 5 years.
Wow.
And so, we had in 2002, my ex-wife and I, of course, had three boys, triplets. And we decided to separate, I guess it was in 2006. So maybe even late 2005. But regardless, they were very young. And so I was in a really unique situation in that I'm kind of restarting my life. I'm going to be a single dad and start with these three little boys. I absolutely wanted 50-50 custody. So I knew I'd had them half the time, willingly so, and wouldn't frankly have it any other way. At the same time, my main source of income, I owned an IT consulting and staffing firm that I started back in the year 2000. And that was going under. And I didn't know at the time, looking back, it all makes sense, but I didn't know at the time the reason that all of my temporary staff was just getting laid off. Well, the main reason is that my major client, we had quite a few clients, but the one that was providing the majority of revenue was Toll Brothers, the home builder.
Yeah.
So see, they stopped selling homes when the economy, when the whole housing crash. I should have known looking back that things started to take a turn in housing. Didn't know, couldn't put two and two together back then, but they just immediately, like one day came in and laid off like 46 of our employees, like overnight. Like, okay, these are contractors. They're all, computer programmers, et cetera. They're done on Friday. And that was literally at the time as I was looking for a new place to live, coming out of my, custom home that I built. And I didn't know what to do, man. So I always liked real estate from kind of looking at it, from a distance. I had some family that were successful in real estate as agents. I'd been following a few people, online, different blogs, et cetera, that were successful in investing in real estate. That was always of interest to me, but I kind of didn't really know where to begin. And so I went out and got my license, really at the start of the crash. And, it turned out to be the best thing ever, right? Because I got involved and I was thrown immediately into short sales, right? The distressed housing market, basically when you have to sell your house for less than what you owe on the mortgage. And so I was thrown into that, and it turned out to be the greatest blessing ever. But to get back to your question, and I kind of wanted to paint that story because I had
Um,
such a burning desire and a need to take care of these three little boys, and now I have another house to pay for. And of course, I still have to maintain the other house, and that had a mortgage, and now there's child support, now there's alimony, and I found just looking at this mountain of debt and monthly expenses, and I had no idea, man. It was just a complete state of panic. So it just pushed me into overdrive. Like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever it takes, and that's frankly what I did, man.
what type of work ethic came from that? What type of schedule? Uh, feel like that would be really helpful
Yeah.
for people right now that probably think they're doing enough, but they may not be.
Yes. No, that's a great question. So I, at the time, again, I was still running my IT consulting firm. So, I mean, to be fair, let's even call that a 40-hour week, right? IT staffing, it's a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, kind of banker's hours type thing. But I knew that real estate was pretty much the opposite. They were nights and weekends, right? That's when you show houses. That's when you bring around buyers and all that good stuff that comes with it. So what I would do is I would work my staffing company throughout the day, and then uh, any free time I had, I devoted to my second new business, which was real estate. So that was all my nights, all my weekends, and frankly, even during the day, right? And because I owned the company, I had a little gap of an hour here or 30 minutes there, and I would pick up and start calling potential buyers, potential people. Hey, I have my license now, John. Do you thinking about selling your house? Do you know anybody? Right? Just constantly, just it consumed me to the point that yeah, I mean, I don't want to use the term workaholic, but and I didn't like it, but I didn't really have much of a choice, right?
Holy cow. Was there success in real estate fairly quickly, or did it take some time with that level of
No,
work ethic?
yeah, it's I guess that depends on how you define success, right? So as an agent, which is my only source of income in the real estate business at that time, I guess I did have success pretty quick because I called so many people, and I just so happens that John said, "Hey, my dad is looking to go, actually looking, my parents are looking to sell their house." And I called them and I got my first listing, right? And then from there, they were looking for a place, and now that turned into my first buyer, right? I was a good friend of the family. And then from there, they knew somebody, which was actually two people, in fact, one of their neighbors and his cousin, who was also looking. And then I got really good at networking, right? So, real estate, it's a slower sales cycle, right? I mean, even once you get started, I don't think I made any money. If I'm not mistaken, I got my license in April 2007. I might have closed my first deal that summer, so a few months later. And then by keeping the funnel full and constantly marketing, constantly getting the word out, it just slowly started to ramp up. And getting back to what I said earlier,
Hmm.
I realized that there's a lot of challenges, right, in real estate, specifically as an agent when you're working with a short sale, because you have to work with the banks, right? You have to get them to agree to take less. And that's so it's a fight, right? It's a struggle, it's a big negotiation. And so I realized real quick that nobody wanted to do that. All of my new colleagues in real estate are like, oh God, short sales. Oh, what a nightmare. Oh, but immediately I realized that, wait a minute, if this is something that nobody wants to do, therein lies the opportunity that I could be one of the few that could go after this intentionally, which really nobody was doing at the time, you
Wow.
know?
What you still have a lot of conversation with people in the States. What's the
Oh, yeah.
morale? What's the morale? What's the beat on the street
Regarding real estate,
regarding entrepreneurs that you're talking to, business owners?
it's, for the most part, it's pretty rough, right? Like you said. There's a lot of factors with that. Obviously, inflation's through the roof. I mean, rates are really high, interest rates across the board. Um, and things change quick too, right? I mean, for example, my brother's a home inspector, so he's always had a really good gauge. He almost had the crystal ball when it comes to determining the market because, a house goes under contract, and one of the first things they're doing is getting a home inspection. So
Mm,
he would know through all these years. I mean, here we are, 2007 to 23. I mean, you're talking about, what is that? I don't know, almost 60, 17 years almost. And he would always be a great indicator for me, like, hey, Bri, I'm starting to slow down. Now, he would say that before anybody else knew. He would
mm,
let me know that really before most of the realtors, because there's that longer sales cycle, right? You get a house under contract, it's not closing generally for 30 to 45 days. So there's a lag, there's a lag time there. But Brandon, my brother, knew right away. And so when I actually spoke to him as recently as this summer, right? I mean, we're sitting here and it's, mid-November, late November. In the summer, he was still really, really busy. Come September, we had a conversation. I'll never forget. He said, I'm really slow. I was
Wow.
like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, man, I'm slowing down and things are going to get rough. And that's literally over the last 60 days. What's happened is, days on market, all these, other indicators when it comes to real estate, things are really slowing down. Now, I understand there's still a shortage in inventory, but at the end of the day, it let me know that in that sector alone, and of course, yeah, I still talk to a lot of real estate investors, real estate agents, people in the mortgage industry. And yeah, things are pretty tough right now. But Jay, even outside of that, right? People that I know that are doing direct sales company, people that I know that are, in the finance world. It's yeah, I mean, you always have people that are always going to do well, or at least they're going to tell you they're doing well no matter what, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, man, people are struggling and feeling the effects of the way the current economy is, no doubt.
What advice do you have for the 20 somethings looking to come up as entrepreneurs? Because you started in your mid 20s, right?
Yeah, yeah, I did. So my last job, right, the last time I had a boss and worked for somebody was right before the boys were born, the triplets in 2002. So I was 28 years old. I haven't had a boss or job since I just turned 49. So I've been on my own now 21 years as an entrepreneur.
Wow.
Numerous different businesses, many failures, of course, bankruptcy, I've been up and down the whole gamut. Um, but I started my entrepreneurial journey really when I was a kid, right? I mean, I know it's the whole proverbial, I had a paper out, but I did. I was 9 years old. You were supposed to be 10, but my uncle got me in, right? So, um, moving into high school, I mean, I had a friend of mine whose dad, I guess, was into the gambling world. We were running football pools, right? So, just always hustling my whole life, man, always hustling. But the advice would be to find a niche, right? Find something that not only is there a need for it, but something that you can get passionate about because, there's a lot of different ways to make money, right? I mean, there's a million different ways, but I think that if it's something that at least should hold your interest, something that you find interesting, it's going to be a big help, whether that's real estate or finance or selling cars or whatever the case may be.
Did you envision yourself becoming an entrepreneur young?
Always, always, I think it's just I've always had a rebellious nature. I mean, my mom would tell you that starting from the time I was probably in diapers. All of my teachers would tell you that, right? I'm the kind of guy I never like being told what to do by somebody else. I always was questioning authority, challenging authority, and obviously growing up and going to school and having teachers and eventually jobs that didn't work real well. To the point where starting in I guess when I was 13, I got a job in a deli, and then I got heavily involved in the restaurant industry. And let's just say between 13 and 28, that 15-year time span, I had 28 jobs, meaning I worked for somebody else. 28 jobs, bro. I was fired
Really?
from 27 of them.
Really?
Fired. Yeah. Um, wasn't due to lack of like work ethic. I would always, do my best. It's just, I just couldn't, I would always ask questions maybe I shouldn't ask and challenge people. And I just was never a good employee. I always said I'm a horrible employee and I'd never make it in the military.
Asking questions. Have you always been curious?
Oh yeah, man. Always like, we're okay. Here's how you have to do that. Why? Why? And I always just needed to know why, especially if I saw a better, more efficient way. Well, why are we doing this
Huh.
when it seems like we can get to the same outcome by doing this? It's just going to be faster. Well, no, we're going to do it this way. Why? Well, because we've always done it that way. Well, that's not a reason. And I was that way since I was a kid. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? Yeah. I don't know, man. And it's not something you teach. It's just like, it just inside of you. Right. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's just how I've always been.
Hmm. What about this pivot to Italy? When did you actually move?
So we moved permanently in July of 2021. So it's coming up on 2.5 years ago. We moved to my wife's hometown. So after my divorce, and
Wow.
obviously fell in love, found my current wife now. We have two children now of our own. So that gives me five total boys, two more boys, right?
Holy
We have an
cow.
11. Yeah, we have an 11 and an 8-year old. And once we got together, which was really shortly after my divorce, I she moved, right? She had initially come here to study and, spend some time in America, and then of course she wanted to go back. And then I was, you know, let's put it this way: she made a huge sacrifice by staying with me away from her family in a foreign country for 15 years. And I always, it's funny because looking back when I was a child, I would tell my parents and then eventually my friends in high school and all. And my dream was always, and I don't even know where it came from, but my dream was always, hey, you know what? One day I'm going to marry an Italian girl from a little tiny village. I'm going to move there and retire.
Wow.
I've been saying that since I was 12. Okay. Um, Obviously, it wasn't working out that way. I married an American girl, and everything was great. Obviously, at the beginning, it normally is, right? How marriages work. Things obviously didn't turn out that way, and somehow God put her in my life, and she made that sacrifice for me by staying there because, of course, I had the triplets, and I always said, well, once the boys are men, once they're 18 and they graduate high school, now they're going to have to change. They're going to have to choose a path in life, right? In fact, one of them chose to go to college here in Italy. He goes to fashion school in Milan, so we get to see him just about every weekend, if not every other weekend. The other two, and they, by the way, they just about 2 weeks ago, they just turned 21. So I have three 21-year-olds,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Three men.
wild.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. But
You're like
I
the
do spend a lot.
Rothschilds.
Yeah, right. The dynasty. But
Yeah.
I see him quite often. I see him every day, just about every day, obviously on FaceTime, which is great. And fly them here a couple, 3 times a year when they're able to. Of course, they're getting jobs and starting businesses and kind of doing their own thing in life. But, and I do go back normally every 90 days. I'll go back for a week or two just to see family. And of course, my boys. My parents are still alive, thank God. And, for business reasons as well. So I'm going back, for example, I'm going back in December for a week. I got to go to Salt Lake and then I'll stop in Pennsylvania and see the family.
Wow, that's exciting. What do you
Yeah.
want to be when you grow up?
I haven't figured that out yet, Jay. Honestly, I haven't quite figured that out. It's funny you say that. I was just telling one of my sons, the 21-year-olds, he's in a little bit of it's funny you asked me what advice would I give because I do give advice to 21-year-olds all the time because I have three of them. And so my one son is still struggling to kind of find his path in life. And he gets frustrated and a little depressed sometimes because he went to school for this and that didn't work out. And then he was, well, I'm going to be an electrician. He went to trade school and now he doesn't like that. He doesn't want to do that. And he falls into he's playing video games too much. And then he's still living at home with his mom, my ex-wife, and then she gets on his case about, oh, you're not doing anything with your life. You're playing video games, and he calls me upset and everything. I just don't know what I'm going to do. I feel like a failure. I'm like, listen, man. Here's the thing. I'm 49 years old, and I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I literally just said that to him.
Wow,
I said,
really? Wow.
yeah, literally, Jay. And so I said, if you think I had any clue when I was your age, when I was 21, what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said, and even if I had ideas, which I did at the time, it's changed 7,000 times in between then and now, rather. So don't be too hard on yourself. It's just you need to understand that you need to have short term goals. You
Mm.
need to decide here's where I am today and here's where I want to be. I understand people talk about long term goals. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Mateo, don't even think about 5 years. Let's talk about here's where you are today. Where do I want to be a year from now? Where do I want to be 6 months, 90 days from now? And let's start, mapping out a plan for what you want. But I still don't know what I want to be, what I want to do. I said, all right, well, let's look at this another way. Let's not look at what you want to be or what you want to do. Let's talk about what type of a life you want to live. What do you want the quality of your life to look like? What kind of car do you want to drive? Where do you want to live? You want to get out on your own? You want to get an apartment, right? What's that going to cost? And then I'll help you. Let's build a model, right? My rent's going to be $1,000 or $1,500. Okay, are you going to have a roommate? Are you going to do it on your own? Your car's paid for. You don't have a car payment. Great. What's your cell phone every month? Let's build a budget, and you're going to come up,
Wow.
Mateo, with a number of what it's going to cost you to live this next phase of your life. Not the ultimate goal in life, but just to advance to that next stage. There's a number attached to it, and it's all mathematics. So let's work together, come up with that number, and then we say, okay, here's how much I need to net every month. Now let's talk about what are the solutions to bring in that amount of money to give you that path that we just laid out. And so these are the conversations I'm having as we speak with my sons, but more in particular with my one son. So
Wow, that's amazing. Well, now you can do it with thousands of people listening to this
right,
that they
exactly,
may
right,
not
yeah,
be hearing it from their parents. They get it from you, right?
right,
It's like the cycle of life.
yeah, man. I'm always willing to share. I love it.
What was the inspiration to go in the investment route in real estate from the sales?
Great question. So that actually happened relatively quick. So when I start having my first closings as a real estate agent, I started working relatively quickly with investors, thanks to my father, who actually started that home investing company. So he knew quite
Wow.
a few house flippers, if you will. And then, of course, my brother, who's kind of taken over the reins. And so they introduced me to some local investors, and I started helping them find houses, et cetera, and going to closings. Right now, I'm working with the agents. I'm an agent, and I'm seeing the investors. So we imagine this, Jay. You go to a closing table, and I used to use this example all the time. Let's just use the example of a house. Let's say it sold for $300,000. and I had one end of the deal. So either I was the listing agent or I was representing the buyer, and I would make 3%. So quick math, that's 3% of 300,000 is $9,000. Of course, the broker, right, your real estate broker, your boss, right, if you will, even though you're an independent, they take a cut. Well, in my case, it was about a third. So
Wow.
that means that I would walk with $6,000, but that's a gross figure. Of course, you got to pay taxes on that. So let's just keep it at gross, 6 grand, right? Where I would see the investor, guys and girls, by the way, flip that house and make 40, 50, $60,000. So it didn't take me real long to realize, hey, whoa, hold on a second here. I just made 6 grand. They just made 5 and up to 10 times
Wow.
what I did on the same transaction. And I'm not talking even, and that back then there was a lot of simultaneous flips. So you would literally go to the title company, you would buy it from this person at this price, walk literally to the room next door, sell it at an increased price, and in a matter of 60 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes by signing papers, right? Cash deals, they would make that kind of spread. And after a while, it's just like, whoa, I'm on the wrong side of the table here. I got to learn to be that guy, that girl, right? And so I really started doing some deep dives in YouTube, different blogs. Started looking up all these real estate gurus and people selling courses, and $97 buy my course. And back then, they were really a lot of them CDs, right? They'd send you
Wow.
CDs, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how I got started as an investor.
How did you originally get that big client? So, because when you say toll, if anyone's from PA, they know
Yeah,
that brand. That's like a really serious organization. And I ask because it takes a level of sales acumen or something special to get a big client. So pivot to the IT company for a second. That
yeah,
big
sure. So
Toll Brother company. How did you even get? I need more clients like that.
that was an interesting one. So I actually, if you remember, I had a job up and through 2002. But if you remember, I said I started my IT staffing company in the year 2000.
Mm.
Well, if you go back 2 years prior, in 1998, I took a job for an IT consulting and staffing firm in the same industry, basically. But I was an employee. I was a sales guy, right? I was an executive salesperson. I forget what my title was. It's not important, but I was a sales guy. And so one of the clients for my company that I worked for was Toll Brothers. So my job was to wine and dine, and we had box seats for the Flyers games and the Eagles, and take them around and make friends. And so we actually did. I did make some serious relationships through networking with those clients. I started my own company in 2000. I was burning the candle at both ends because I still had a job at the time, but I was starting my
Wow.
own firm, creating all my own new clients, etc. But I had a 1 year non-compete, right? So it was for 1 year. I couldn't. Once I went out on my own, I couldn't deal with the clients that I had. I would have been sued. So, and I knew I not even to bother trying that. So I wrote it out. I waited out my non-compete, and then I reached out to the people that I had built relationships with over a few years and said, hey, I'm on my own now. In fact, I let them know, hey, I'm leaving this XYZ company. I am starting my own company. And when I'm able to, you're going to be hearing from me real soon. And that's exactly what I did. And frankly, most of them didn't care, to my
Really?
surprise. Like in the sense of like, yeah, well, we've been working with them forever, Brian. Good luck, but we really can't do that. I'm like, no, it's okay. My non-compete's over. I mean, legally, we're allowed to, yeah. But I did get one or two, and Toll Brothers was one of them. And so that's how that whole thing started.
How important has relationship building been in your career, as an entrepreneur?
It's absolutely everything. It's everything. There's the old cliche, your net worth is equal to your network, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's nothing that could be truer than that. And I think that's one of the things that I've always tried to impress upon my sons. Um, because regardless of what you're going to do, right? Let's say you are going to be an employee the rest of your life. You're not going to be that entrepreneur. It doesn't matter, man. You're always going to need contacts. And the one thing that I learned very young is the more people I know, the more people that know my name, the better off I'm going to be, right? For any reason, and not to burn people and leave people feeling better after they left my presence than when they entered my presence, right? There may no, in that moment, there's no, exchange going on. There's no business, right? I'm not selling them something. They're not selling me something. Sometimes there is, most times there's not. But meeting new people, I was really big into going into networking events and just meeting new people. And back in the day, right? I mean, collecting business cards and staying in touch with people.
That's
And
how we met. think.
Yeah, it's exactly how we met. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and, and then people introduce you to people, right? So I think that that is one of the most overlooked skills, and frankly, one that's not taught really that much anywhere, is the power of building your network and developing a very good reputation, maintaining that reputation of integrity and honesty and authenticity, and then but that takes time, right? It takes time. But I started very, very, very young. So, and hopefully here we are all
Hmm.
these years later, and it's really paying off. So that if I'm going to do a new venture, I have a immediate list of people I can call, whether they're interested or not, want to work with me or not. It's here or there, but I always have the raw materials, the network of people to bring something to.
How many people do you talk to a day when you're in
On yeah,
mode?
yeah. On average, I'm probably right now I'm building up a few different things. So I think on average, probably 8 to 12 people a day. And when I say talking
Wow.
to, that's not always phone calls, right? I mean, now in today's day and age, especially me being here in Italy, very few in-person meetings like physical. But that would be everything from an actual phone call to a Zoom, to a FaceTime call, whether it's audio or video, to a Facebook Messenger message, right? WhatsApp, whatever the case may be, I'm interacting with at least, actually, let me take that back. It's probably, Jay, closer to 15 to 20 people a day, different people every single day.
So the average would be 17 and a half, what, 5 days a week, 6 days a week?
Five, yeah, I don't work weekends, unless I have to. If there's something important, I don't work Saturdays and Sundays.
Wow. That's like 87 and a half. I think it's like a shitload of people.
Yeah,
Or it
well, you
seems
know
like a
what?
lot of people. That's a lot of human connection.
It is, but you know what? Especially because I'm juggling so many different balls right now. I'm doing different things. So like whether it's my local real estate, land development projects I'm working on over here, or doing things back in the state with real estate, or my direct sales affiliation, or the investment firm I'm working with out of Switzerland. So there's all these different things I'm doing now. So I kind of that's the other thing. I think going back again to one of your initial questions was what advice would I give to young people or people in general, right? Is you have to learn how to become extremely efficient with your time, right? Really efficient. So knowing, like Tony Robbins teaches, every phone call, every message you're going to send, every Zoom, what is the anticipated outcome of this interaction, right? Is it just to say hello? Is it to rekindle a relationship? Is it to reconnect? Fine. Is it to close a deal? Is it to present an opportunity? Is it to ask for a referral? Whatever the case is, know what the outcome is when you're going into those. That's
Very
huge.
similar personality to you. One of my best friends, Tyler Wagner, shout out. He's been on the show probably 6 times. He made
Okay.
50,000 sales calls in 5 or 6 years. You would love him. And I think over his podcast, he like 15-minute long podcasts, 4 days a week, all day.
Wow.
And there's thousands of these damn little quick episodes.
Right, right.
And like that, I mean, he's a monster. And it
Yeah.
just everything grew from it. Just
Yeah.
the level of energy and intensity.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
I looked at him and said, you know what? I got to do more. I got to talk to more people. I have to do more shows. And, I'm always trying to pay attention and pick things up. But that's one thing I picked up from you is you're not afraid to talk to people, pick up the phone, and
Yeah.
fill your calendar with conversations.
Not at all. And in fact, it didn't start out that way. Obviously, like anything in life, like when you're first starting, you're in your own head and you're worried about, well, what are they going to say? And that, okay, so you're selling this product or you're selling this service or you have this offer. I mean, knowing going in that there's a percentage of people that are going to love what you're offering them. There's a percentage of people that are going to hate it and want nothing to do with it. And there's the huge batch in the middle that you don't know where it's going to go. They're kind of neutral, like, well, yeah, maybe I'm interested in that. It could be something, right? So knowing that you're going to interact and you're going to get one of these three generic responses regardless, and having the ability to remove all emotion from the outcome, just putting in that work, like you were talking about earlier, just putting in that action, removing the emotion of the outcome. Like, I don't care if I'm getting on the phone with this guy and I present this and he thinks what I'm doing is illegal. Well, maybe he doesn't understand what I'm doing, or maybe it's just not for him, or he thinks that I was talking about something that I wasn't, like that. Now maybe I didn't communicate things properly, so maybe that's a learning lesson for the next time I talk to somebody about that opportunity, that okay, some of the keywords that I used triggered certain thoughts in their brain, which made them think this, which is completely inaccurate. Therefore, I need to adjust my pitch or my conversation. I like to think of it more as a conversation. So I'm also taking every interaction, regardless of the outcome, as a learning experience of how I can improve.
Why?
Because perception is everything, right? And so while something may sound great in my head, and I know, this particular opportunity of offering, whatever the case may be, it's wonderful, and it checks all the boxes, and I'm excited about it, and I'm coming with the enthusiasm, I'm making the call or doing the Zoom, and then on the other end of that interaction, I'm receiving kickback or maybe even negative feedback. It used to be shocking, but now it's like, okay, that's cool. But tell me more. Tell me why you're saying that, and if you're not interested, that's fine. I respect that. In fact, let's consider my pitch closed right now. But do me a favor, Jay. What made you think that? What made you say that? What did I specifically say that made you react or say or think X? Because that will help me. And most times if you ask people, they're willing to share it with you, even though initially they may not want to. They may feel like, oh, they're going to hurt your feelings, or but
Absolutely.
pushing them to actually, hey, no, we're friends, we're colleagues, just be straight with me. What did I say? What didn't you like? It'll help me a lot for the next person I call. I'd really appreciate that.
Wow.
I don't think I can't remember. I honestly, off the top of my head, can't think of anybody that wouldn't give me that feedback, but you have to ask for it.
How did you learn that?
I learned that, believe it or not, in the Amway business. So when I was 18 years old, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And I spent a year of my life, fighting for my life and living in and out of Jefferson Hospital with numerous severe, very serious surgeries, numerous rounds of chemotherapy. And the interesting thing is I was diagnosed in July, but in June, right after I actually graduated high school, my uncle, which is my mom's sister's husband, was an Amway distributor. And he basically signed me up into this business. He said, hey, you graduated, let's come in this business with me. Well, what are we going to do? Wow, we're going to sell products. And, you get people to buy products, and then they sell to people they know. And then they sell to people they know. And then they sell to people they know. I'm like, oh, sounds good. Yeah. I never heard of Amway, right? And what do you have? What are we selling? Well, we got soaps and vitamins and house cleaners and all this stuff. I'm like, great, let's do it.
You
I just
need
needed
that.
money, right? Yeah, I need money. Well, I'm 18 years old, right? And what was great about that, so fast forward, I'd never made any money in that business. But I got to say that the association, that the training, the people that were teaching people how to go be salespeople for Amway, right? Distributors, if you will. It was some of the best training to this day I've ever received in my life, because for the first time in my life, I learned about positive mental attitude. I learned about self-development. I learned, you got to understand, Jay, I came from Trenton, New Jersey, a blue collar family. I didn't really come from a successful background, if you will, in that sense. I never heard of Tony Robbins. I had no idea who Dale Carnegie was. I had no idea, the list goes on and on and on. And, Napoleon Hill, who? Like, I had no idea who these people were, actual classics when it came to sales and psychology and persuasion. But they gave me a list, and they said, all right, young man, here's a list of books. We want you to read them all, every one of them. And when you're done, read them again. And when you're done, read them again until you know them inside and out. So, and then they also had cassette tapes. They would actually, I'm dating myself, right? 93 cassette tapes from their seminars, from their trainings, which were all about sales and persuasion, overcoming objections, learning how to not feel like that telephone weighs 10,000 pounds when you pick it up, learning how to prospect people and just go up to a complete stranger when you're standing in line at the gas station or you're in 7-Eleven and just saying, hey, how you doing? Introducing yourself and putting out your hand and putting your shoulders back and putting a big smile on your face, prospecting people. I was terrified of that, terrified, but I did it, and I did it, and I did it, and I did it. And then I achieved a little level of success, and they recognized me on stage, and they put me on a stage, and there was 200 people in the audience, and I'm 18 years old, and I'm terrified, ready to vomit. And all I had to do was walk across, and they handed me the mic. Actually, they didn't even hand it to me. Put it up to my mouth. And I just had to say my name and where I was from.
Wow.
That's where it all began. And I say that because when I was sick fighting for my life for a year in Jefferson Hospital, I had nothing to do anyway. So I just consumed these books, these cassette tapes. And I just literally rewired my brain for success. And I learned about all these things so that when a year later, after all the therapies and chemotherapy and everything failed, and I went to a prayer meeting, and my aunt, who was a Christian, they laid hands on me, and the Lord Jesus healed me. Complete miraculous healing, by the way. Got to give him all the credit. Um, Now I'm out in the real world. I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, I knew I didn't want to get a job. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But I had to get a job. So I knew every job. Maybe that's the reason why I was fired, because every job I knew that I took, Jay, I knew was temporary until I found what I was going to do. Right. And so I applied everything I learned. And then I achieved a little more level of success to where I was in Anaheim, California at the Anaheim Stadium. And I was 19 years old, just growing my hair back from all that other, chemotherapy and all that stuff. And they wanted me to give my testimony about, the system and how God healed me, right? A very strong Christian organization. And I got up on stage and I spoke for the first time in front of 17,000 people. And it was the most exhilarating feeling in my life. I couldn't even see everybody, the lights, just this seas of people. And when I got done, and the applause and the clapping, not because of who I was, just this young kid from New Jersey, but what I shared with them moved the crowd. I had an emotional response, nothing to do with ego, because I had nothing to be proud of at that point, per se.
Wow.
It was something addictive, and wow, I have the ability to help people. I have the ability to move people emotionally for something good, right? And that never left, and that never left. So everything I've ever done since then, I've always been very good at building teams of people, motivating people, training people, whether it's in real estate or different MLMs or direct sales or this or that, all the million things I've done. It all really stems back from something that almost took my life, right?